In this video, I am going to explain you the backend part of the user application. So hey guys, this is Vishwet. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. So let's get started. So in the first video, I have explained you, I have showed you how the user application looks like. Okay, this is the user application looks like. I have explained you the functionality, everything over there. So if you have not watched that video, I highly encourage you to watch that. And in the second video, I have explained you how the front end code looks like. I have explained you the implementation part. Okay. And if you have not watched that video, you can watch that video after this video. Okay. And in this video, I'll explain you the backend part, the backend code, and also I will hopefully be able to cover the database part. Okay. So let's start with the backend part. I will open my VS Code. Okay, I will resume from the point where I started, or if you want, I can just show you the particular files that are present for the backend part, and then we'll see the source code. So if you see, I have main.py, I have operations.py. Okay, I can create a different folder called as source and put this files over there. Anyways, it's a very simple project, so I'm not going to do that. So main.py is the starting point of our program. So if you once you hit main.py, our application starts running. And what you need to do is, okay, let me open VS Code and I will show you what the main.py looks like. So this is the main.py. It's a Flask application. Okay, that's it. And if you have not watched Flask application, if you have not worked on Flask application, I do highly encourage you to learn Flask. It's very simple. You can learn it in maybe 1 or 2 hours. Okay. So, and it's also very powerful. You can build lots of applications using it. I have built lots of applications using Flask. These are the functions that handle different API endpoints. So once our Flask application runs, okay, once our Flask application runs, so our Flask application directly once, okay, let me run the Flask application. It will be better for me to explain. Okay, our environment is already activated. Make sure you have venv present over here and just do python minus python main.py. So it's running. So once we click this particular function will be invoked. Okay. What this particular function is going to do is just going to render index.html. Okay. I have shown you index.html, how it looks like. So I'm not going to show it over here. So it's just going to open index.html web page. That's it. So if I just do a control click, it just opens index.html page. Okay. If I do a refresh, it works just fine. Now, index.html page is being rendered. That is fine. Now, I have also shown you, let me go into the JavaScript file. Okay. Now, there is this function, I should say there is this endpoint called as submit user data. So submit user data, if I have shown you before, submit user data is coming from over here. So this particular function gets the username and password from the front end and submits this particular user data to the backend. And this is the function in the backend that handles this particular submit user data, right? So this is the submit user data method is post, and you can see this gets the user data. So request.get.json, gets our data from the front end. When the request is submitted, when we do request.get.json, it just converts the request, I should say the body of the request, into a dictionary. So, and I'm just using a normal username and password. I'm just reading the dictionary values, the username and password. And after that, what I'm doing, I'm just calling this save to database function. Now, this save to database is not present in our particular main.py because I don't like to have everything on one single file. In the main.py, I just try to have all my API endpoints functions being present. You can see most of the functions, I should say all the functions, are having the particular API endpoints. So save to database, if I click over here, do a control click over here, it just moves to save to database, right? So you can see I have provided doc strings and comments for all the functions. Like each and every function, what they are doing, I have provided you the particular doc strings. So let me go to save to database. So it calls this particular function. So you can just read this function invokes other functions which creates database folder if not found. Anyways, you can read that. So save to database, it's first of all what it does is it creates the database folder. So this database folder might not be present, right? It is not present actually. If I show you, it is actually not present. There is no database folder over here, right? So what this code is going to do is it is going to create a database folder for you. Okay. Okay, that's nice. We are able to see the doc string. The function creates a database folder. So this is going to create a database folder for you if the folder is not present. This is going to create a database file for you. So for example, you have a database file that is users.db. So this particular folder is going to create the database file for you, right? So folder is created, file is created. Now we have create db schema. So I am using SQLite, right? Which is a inbuilt package, or I should say inbuilt database that comes with Python. Okay, so you can use MySQL, PostgreSQL. Okay, for that you need to set up your system. You can have this ORM present, which is I think SQL Alchemy. You can have all this set up, but I like SQLite because Python comes with SQLite and I don't need to have my SQL set up everything. So that's why I'm just use SQL because it's a simple application. I just kept that in my mind. So what it does is, so db schema, so it creates the schema. So if I just hover on all this function, it's like for the database folder, it just creates the database. Okay, it's just few lines of code. Okay, just create using the OS module. It is creating the database folder name, I should say folder. So if you have not watched my OS module, I have a video playlist on that. You can just go and watch that. Then it is creating this particular database. Okay, this is the database. That's it. It just creates the database file. That's all it does. Now we have this create db schema. This just creates the schema for the table, right? If you know SQL, you can understand this pretty easily. Okay, I am not an SQL guy, right? I should say I'm not an expert in SQL or SQL, but this is pretty simple, so I can understand and I can write this. So this just creates this schema, like how the table is going to look like. So you have an integer, like you have a column name as ID. That's an integer. It's a primary key. There is a concept of primary key, secondary key, and it's auto-incremented. By auto-incremented, I mean it will automatically change from 1, 2, 3, 4. Like the first user will get the ID as 1, the second user will get the ID as 2. Okay, so that's all it does. So we have this particular username, which is a text, and it has to be unique and not null. That means not empty. The user has to provide a username. So the same goes for password, but password has to be a text. It does not need to be unique. Okay, so I mean, what I mean by unique is 2 people can have the same password, right? It's like that. So for example, Bob can have a password as 1234, and Cat can have a password as 1234. Okay, the username has to be unique. Bob and Bob can't be present. Okay, I hope I was able to explain that. So, and I have another column called as history, which is update time. It just saves data. It just saves date and time. That's it. So this particular function creates this schema, and this are just to execute the particular query and commit it. Okay, I think they're pretty self-explanatory. Okay, so this will just execute your query. Okay, but make sure you also do a commit to get that changes saved in the database. So these two are needed. and any error will be handled and will be displayed in your backend console, or I should say Flask console. So if I go back, now here we are getting the current date and time. It's pretty simple. Okay. You can see datetime.now. I have also made videos on datetime, time delta. I don't think I have a video on string time zone, but yeah, I have a playlist on datetime module, so you can watch that too. So this just returns the current date and time in a particular formatting. Okay, and after that I have another function called as write to database. Now this is the function that actually goes and writes to database. So I have this username, password, current date and time, and if I just click over here, this is the function that writes to database. Okay, so this creates the connection. Okay, I have connection over here. Did I not explain that previously? So this is the particular connection you need to make to connect to your database, right? It's better, I think, if I make a video on SQLite to explain these things, but just for now, this creates a connection to connect to your database. This is a cursor. Cursor is like moreover like a, I should say, pointer. Okay, so it just points to a particular position in a row. Okay, I think I will explain more about connection cursor in a proper video. I think that will be better. So just for the time being, I'll just explain. So this is the connection. Connection is just to create the connection with your database file. Okay, you have to just pass the path, database path over here. Cursor is like a pointer. Okay, and this is the particular query that you have. So I am just creating a table. Okay, I think I have explained this previously. So this is the schema. So I'll come back to the write to database function. So likewise, we have this particular connection. I have this particular cursor. Okay, the message is none over here. Okay, this is for a specific purpose. So now here, if you see, I am just using a query to save data, or I should say insert data into the database. And this values, these are something that I learned like when I was building this application. So this is a little bit different from how we write SQL. So generally we'll write something like insert into users, username, password, history, and we'll pass the value as username, password, like username, password, and current date and time over here. But I heard that there is this issue of SQL injection. Anyways, if you don't know, don't bother. So just remember that this works. This is a query, prevents us from SQL injection. That's it. And this, and we are just using this particular cursor.execute to execute the particular command, like the query, and committing the particular transaction, I should say particular data into the database over here, the DB file. And if the user is saved, right? If the user is saved, we are just passing the message that this particular user is saved in the database. If there is any issue, we are just printing that, writing this database and printing the particular problem over here, the exception problem, the exception message, I should say. And if there is, now I'm just checking whether the user is already present or not. Okay, so if the user is already present, the SQL, this particular query, the cursor will throw a exception, right? So I am just checking if the user already exists in the database. If it exists, I am just passing this particular message as the user exists. Else I am saying that some issue has occurred, some error has occurred in the database. That's it. So this is the function that handles the part where we are writing the actual data into the database. And I think if we come back, that's all it does. So the response that we got, we are just returning the response. So if the user already exists, it is just saying that the user exists. If there is any problem, it just returns that there is any problem. If the user was successfully saved, I am just returning the user was successfully saved. That's it. So now the table part is pending. I believe this is the part which I should be explaining you now. So whenever, if I open the script, okay, script.js, the front end part. So this particular function, or I should say this particular event listener, what it does, like, okay, so once the HTML file is loaded completely, it calls this particular function. Now, what this particular file will do is it will call main get all user details, and I am just using this particular function fetch all user details from database, and it is calling this function, right? So this particular function, what it does is it gets all the username from the database. That's it. Nothing much. I am creating the connection, defining the cursor. Okay. I am just saying select username history from users because I don't want to print passwords. So I just want username and history. That's it. And I'm just doing cursor.fetchall. It's a syntax to get all the data. And I am just processing the data a little bit because this returns a string. I want to process it in a dictionary. Okay. So I mean this returns a list of tuples, I should say, not string. My bad. This returns a list of tuples, and I just want to return a dictionary. Okay, because dictionary will be easier for us to transmit, because dictionary we can easily convert into a JSON object, right? And any issue, any problem, any exception will be handled, right? And obviously we are closing the connection for each and everything. We are closing the connection, and that's it. We're returning the data that is being present, and the data is being returned from here to, okay, the data is being returned, data dictionary, from here to the main file over here, and I'm just using jsonify to convert the data into a string, and I am just sending it back. Okay, that's it. That's all it is doing. This is the whole application. I've explained you every single thing. If there is any issue, do let me know. I have tried my best to explain the front end and the back end part. Okay. So in the front end, I have explained you the selectors. I have explained you the event listeners. Event listeners are like, we have this many events like click, focus. For all these events, this is a particular function. So when we click, this function is executed. When we focus, this is executed. Now focus on what? Focus on username. This particular function is executed. Focus on password. This particular function is executed. When the content is loaded of what? The whole web page. The document is the whole web page. Then this particular function is invoked. So that's all script.js does. I've explained you operations. Okay. And the main.js also I've explained you. Okay, now one more thing before completing this. So now I want to show you how the database looks like. Can we open the database? We can't open the database. Okay, so to check the database, there is another extension that we can use, which is SQLite. We have a SQLite, yes, we have a SQLite extension. Let me install the SQLite Viewer. Okay, it's installed. Now if I go to user DB, right click, open with SQLite Viewer, and if I go to users and see, this is the particular data that is present. 1 Gorang 99, this is the password. Okay, you can see the password like what I typed. So this is the particular user that are present, username, password, history, and you can see the ID is already present, 1, 2, 3. Okay, you can have another tool which I also use, which is SQLite browser. You can use this one. This is also good. I use it a lot. Okay, you can just go and download this. So I think that's it for this video. So this was a very simple, as I said multiple times, this was a very simple application. So if you are an HTML, CSS, JavaScript, I should say front-end, back-end expert, this might not feel overwhelming, but I think this is very important for people who are just want to have a feel of front-end and the back-end, how it looks like. So that's all for this video. If you like this video, do press that like button. If there is any issue with my explanation, or like you're not able to understand, just do let me know in the comment section. I will be reading those comments. So that's all for this video. Do press that like button, and I will see you in an awesome upcoming programming video.